But generally kind of going through the agenda items here about what we've done to date, what are the issues with the culvert now, what have we looked at, and then essentially where we're recommending that the town goes from here.
Just to be clear, this the funds for this are coming from an earmark. So we obviously just sat through a very tough budget discussion. There is an earmark set aside for this.
For this part, not the entire project.
No, right. For this part of the project, and there should be some left over for the next part. And we'll get into more detail on that later.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
Yes, you're welcome.
So for everyone who's I'm not familiar with Joint Grass Brook, it's right up the road on Main Street. Mill Street kind of does the jug handle around the mill pond there, and Joint Grass Brook flows from the west and east across Main Street. So back last year, we had a small contract with the town to pick up where the previous town engineer had left off with this culvert. And basically what we found is that this culvert is in poor condition, and we'll go over some of the more details about that. And it really needs to be replaced in the near term. So we looked at some options, which we'll kind of rehash with you guys. But the initial assessment was that there's no real biological or historic roadblocks to permitting replacement here. Another key takeaway is, although this is in the FEMA flood zone, there's no base flood elevations. So there's some, obviously we can't increase the flood elevations, but there's less stringent requirements here from FEMA. And at the time, the initial feedback we received from the town was that complete replacement with a larger structure that we're going to go through option 3. We're calling it the aluminum box culvert option. We have photos of what that looks like. That was the preferred option. It is a cost-effective structure. It provides a 50-year service life. Obviously, service life and structure costs are linked to the HIP. So this is still a long service life with a cost-effective structure. After that, the town did apply for a grant for design and construction. However, this project was not selected. However, luckily, as Dave pointed out, the town did receive a $250,000 earmark from the state for design and construction purposes. So what we prepared for Jason previously is a scope and fee to basically design and assist the town with the bidding for this project. And as Dave alluded to, there's the excess funds that can go towards construction. Obviously, it would not be enough to fund both design, bid, and construction. So part of our scope that Dave will talk about is looking into some grant options. The key takeaway, and which we'll go into about why we're going to design it certain ways, is we want this to be quote unquote Chapter 85 ready. Chapter 85 is the process that MassDOT uses to ensure that municipal bridges are built to certain standards. So obviously, with MassDOT involved, there's a lot more stringent requirements, especially on documentation. So obviously, from our due diligence perspective, we would never design anything that's substandard or unsafe. But to play with the rules with MassDOT, you have certain boxes to check, which has a cost implication to that. So a little bit about the culvert. It's a corrugated metal pipe. There's thousands and thousands of these across the Northeast. They went in quick and easy, all the way, from the 40s and 50s all the way up to the 90s. They still go in on occasion, but these are not structures that are recommended because they have low service life, and they're not. Often they're hydraulically undersized, and they're not environmentally friendly for stream crossing of sediment and fish and other aquatic organisms. What stands out about this one is the photo on the top left. There's some holes along the bottom of the culvert. The center hole is a bit hard to see, I admit, but there's a large hole in the bottom of the culvert. That's called the invert, and it's basically peeling up. And then for anyone who's familiar with the site, there's quite a lot of beaver activity on the upstream side. So this does, due to the small opening, this does get plugged fairly regularly. And I know that your highway staff needs to go out and attend to this quite often. So, and then, the upstream and downstream head walls, they're dry stack stone masonry. So they're very serviceable They provide long service life, but over time they do have settlement. They do, the soil behind the wall comes out when it rains, and you get some movement, some deformation. So generally, the overall, what we would assume, our opinion of this culvert is in poor to serious condition. That I will caveat that that's in comparison to a new structure. So there's no, we didn't have any concerns about load carrying capacity or pushing traffic one way or the other. This is just in comparison to an existing brand new bridge in poor condition. I'll go through these really quick because this is also part of what we looked at. We did kind of do conceptual analysis of 3 options. The first option is slip lining. So that's basically put a new pipe inside the old pipe. Is the 20,000 foot view of that. It's fairly cheap to do. It provides a relatively long service life, but there's a couple of issues. Obviously, when you're putting a pipe in a pipe, you're reducing your opening, so you're not meeting your environmental regulations. You're making flooding worse, and you're kind of upsetting the apple cart with FEMA about the flood maps. You would have an upstream rise associated with this unless you did something else like install a bypass culvert. This is unlikely to get Mass DOT Chapter 85 funding because it's not a structure that they would recommend for long-term solution. We will talk more, Dave will talk a lot more about grants, but this is not an EVP action grant. That eligible for that as well.
Yeah, and just quickly on that, while we're here, MVP action grant does require that we meet stream crossing general standards, and with that, chances are we have to also meet Chapter 85 review.
Option 2 is kind of go with that replace in kind. Like I mentioned, these corrugated metal pipes, they still go in. The materials are a little bit better. This is a photograph of an aluminum as opposed to steel, so you're not going to have the same level of corrosion. You're going to get a 50-year service life, but it really doesn't improve your environmental, hydraulic, or the beaver situation. This is a structure that Mass DOT would potentially approve through Chapter 85, but one of the big things that we'll go into is scour. So during a flood event, you might have the channel, migrating because of erosion, and especially the depth of scour. And if you don't put the bottom of that pipe below the calculated scour depth, that's kind of a game over for Mass DOT. So really hard to mitigate this for scour. So again, not something that we were in favor of. The last option, like I said, is an aluminum box culvert. This has a lot of advantages over the other 2. It's still cost effective. It's still going to give you that 50-year service life, but you can size this to open up the crossing. For all the environmentally conscious folks, the Mass DER has their stream crossing guidelines, which we'll go into a little bit more detail. But that's basically to have a nice wide structure that can accommodate the channel, have natural banks on both sides. So you have aquatic organism passage, amphibians, all that jazz. This is a structure that is a Mass DOT kind of approved structure for the bridge manual. It's easier to mitigate for scour, and this would be eligible for all the grants that we're looking at. This photo, it doesn't show it. This is just a sample photo, but one of the asks from the town was to make it a bit more aesthetically pleasing. So there are some coatings that we can do to not have it be that shiny aluminum finish. Yeah. Like more of a brown. So that's what we're going to specify. But this is generally the feel of what we're recommending.
So it won't be like the stone facade that it is now.
No, it'll be like,
Yeah.
sort of like a rustic.
Sort of like the rustic guardrail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The other options which we discussed at length with the town, but we haven't really pursued, is more of like the traditional concrete structures, a box culvert, a rigid frame, or the other crossing on Main Street, which is a span structure. Those do offer a much longer service life, 75 years minimum, but associated with that is quite a larger price tag. Yeah. And Dave will go into that about some of the limitations on the grant funding, but from a dollar perspective. But we wanted to provide something that could be funded with grant limits that are available. This is just a nice handy slide that Mass DER publishes about their stream crossing guidelines. I won't go into, everything in so much specifics, but they do want you to have a structure that's wider than the channel, and has that natural bottom, and what we're specifying would meet all these requirements. Sorry, again, kind of a small slide with a lot of red, but one of the things that drives the cost on Dave and I's end of the design engineering is what I've highlighted in red. Like I said previously, we want to make sure that our design meets, with the earmark that you have, we want to make sure that our design is going to be eligible for all these grants. So we need to ensure that we're going to meet all these MGL, the Master General Law, Chapter 85 reviews. And basically everything in red is things that we would normally do anyway. It's just once you get Mass DEP involved, the cost goes up more. And especially that column on the right, the hydraulic report, the geotechnical report, those, they have a very prescriptive method, and they want to see you do it their way, and that adds the cost.
Just like Joe was saying, we do a lot of this stuff anyway, but when they want it done their way, now we have to incur
That's X, Y, Z. Yeah. It's the nature of the beast, though.
Yeah.
Right? It is what it is.
So turn it over to Dave to kind of talk about what's available for some grants for construction.
Yeah, so basically the construction grants require that we have a design in hand and the permits in hand as well. So where we have the earmark, we figured we can get through the first step of actually having that design and much of the permitting process together, so that if it needs to sit on the shelf for a while because you can't make any of the matches that may be required, you have a design that's ready to go, and then you can go ahead and say, okay, we're looking for the construction money. So that's the first part. Is we get through this, we have the design ready. If we wait, one of the things we talked about before is if we wait and try to get design money, try and get a grant for design, then it sits, the problem becomes worse, just like everything else. The more you wait, the bigger the problem becomes. So if we get the design out of the way, now it's okay, let's apply for this grant or that grant or the other grant or all three grants on an annual basis until we get one. And a lot of these grants, you can apply for more than one grant as well. Of course, there's costs associated with that because there's different tweaks and whatnot we'd have to do, but you can apply for multiple grants. So the DER culvert replacement municipal assistance grant right there, that's the one we're talking about. We originally looked at applying for that one in the beginning, and we realized the cost to do the extra Chapter 85 work and to get the stream crossing guidelines in place, we'd scaled back and said, okay, what can we do? What grant we could apply for without doing those extra steps? And that's the bottom grant we see there. The Rural and Small Town Development Fund, which we applied for last year and unfortunately we did not get. All these are competitive grants, so there were points that we just missed out on, and other communities went out on. Even though we had the size of the community was the right size, they're all looking for other terms we talked about today. Development, you're going to serve development, you're going to serve this. You have an environmental justice population, so on and so forth. Just didn't have the other boxes to check, so we lost out on that.
Try again next year.
Yeah, exactly. So with the DER culvert, the award is anywhere from $25,000 and $40,000. So if we found a structure that fell within those criteria, we could get the full coverage of that grant. There's no match required except for the balance of the project cost. So if you have a $600,000 culvert, they'll award up to $400,000, and then you have to raise the other $200,000. The other thing they put in their stipulations is if it's over $400,000, you can stipulate why you can't make that difference. They may consider you, but obviously it's more favorable if you have the percentage there. The MVP Action Grant, that's anywhere from $25,000 to $3 million. The match is now 10%. It used to be 25. I know when I first talked about MVP with the town, we talked about 25%. Even as recently as our last meeting, it was 25%. When I went online today, I saw that actually reduce it down to 10%. So that's favorable. And that's one of our biggest potentials for getting the whole project funded. Again, you can maximize your dollar amount, or again, find something that fits within the budget we have and say, okay, we can come up with this solution with this much left of the earmark or some other funds to represent the 10%. If we have $50,000 left, then that's a $500,000 project that we can do.
At what point can we apply for the MVP?
We can apply so the MVP actually goes out twice a year.
But we haven't quite completed our.
Right, so we'll be eligible I believe we'll be eligible, if not in June after we submit, after we get approval, which should be July or August. So there'd be, I think it's September round or October round we can apply for, or definitely
I mean, we're close.
within March, April for next year.
Yeah.
There's a municipal small bridge program which we can't apply for because it's not considered a bridge currently, but this would be eligible in 50 years or so when it becomes a bridge. If we make the span 10 feet or wider, it's between 10 and 20 feet, and now falls under the municipal small bridge program. But
There's a lot of money just got pumped into that, right? Isn't that part of like the infrastructure plan?
yes, yeah. And again, as I mentioned before, we applied for the Rolling Small Town Development Fund. We got denied this past year. That's anywhere from $50,000 to $500,000. The match is 10% plus. You get special consideration if you can match. So you don't have to match, but if you match anywhere from 10% or more, they'll look at your project more favorably. Again, that one doesn't require the stream crossing standards or the Chapter 85 review.
Yeah.
But if we focus on that again, we miss out on these other potential grant opportunities and other ones that we haven't looked at yet. I looked at the FEMA BRIC program. The problem with FEMA BRIC is, I can't remember what BRIC stands for, but
Building resilient infrastructure and efficacy.
something like that, yeah, and communities or something.
Yeah.
I believe you.
The problem there is that you have to show repeated issues. So
Yeah.
if this was a culvert that was continually failing, not because of a beaver problem, but because every storm it overtopped, you could say, okay, we've already had to do other mitigation actions here.
Yeah.
We're constantly overtopping this bridge in 25-year storm events. Forget about the 100-year storm event. Then FEMA, you could take advantage of the FEMA funds. And again, there may be other funds out there, but these are the ones that are most currently available.
So the conclusions, so we've written a scope and fee for design and bid for this option for aluminum box culvert. That would be, like we talked about, be consistent with all these grant applications in the future. The total fee is $191,000 and change 192. And again, I want to reiterate that that's out of the earmark that the town has from the state. And I did a quick breakdown because that is a large number, and there's we can talk about how we got there based on this breakdown, and a lot of it is, 32,000 specific to that, meeting that NASDOT Chapter 85 effort. They've got a little breakdown there too of what the added costs are associated with that. Another major task is we have close to 20,000 just in permitting. And for anyone who's familiar with the Massachusetts permitting process, there's a lot of public involvement, there's a lot of Concom involvement, there's multiple meetings, there's developing the permits, there's a site walk. So all of that kind of adds up. There's other costs associated with field survey, money we budgeted for public outreach, money we specifically budgeted because this is an earmark into helping write grants, and then money for helping the town administer a public bid service. We've structured the contract as actual costs. That means if there's savings, like if we don't need certain costs for environmental permitting, that's returned to the town. This number is the quote unquote Cadillac option. It's to take all the services and run with them based on all of our experience with similar structures, which is basically how we arrived at that number. So that's kind of all we had. The last kind of questions or comments, I can go back to any slide if there's further questions about.
So your 192 number
Yes.
is Hoyle Canada's all-in number,
Correct.
right? And in that number are design, project administration, and project management?
It's not construction,
Project management, but not construction.
not construction.
Not project management. So, and then let me ask a tech question, right? Because I've had some experience with this over the years, right? Is there any issue with the wall, because it's an aluminum culvert, right? I know it's gonna get coated with something, right? Are there any issues, and I'm not familiar with, I've used aluminum culverts on jogging trails, okay? Are there any issues with the pH of the water being acidic and attacking the aluminum?
The issues that we run into, and I'm a certified bridge inspector and I've done lots of these bridge inspections, is not the water that it's sitting in generally. It's the salt water getting in from the roadway and interacting with the aggregates and the stones in the roadway fill. One way we mitigate around that is by putting in an impervious membrane, so not painting it with the coating, but putting in like a sheet membrane over the back.
Okay, so it's gonna have some sort of a sheet over it.
Yeah, so basically you install it, you start to backfill with some of your materials, and then you, I'm trying to think of it's not poly, a poly tarp, that's not it's similar to that, but it's a lot more rugged, and you kind of drape that over. That way, when any water comes through the pavement, it's hitting that and running off. It's not really going through.
So it's is that what is used often sometimes with septic systems, that little like membrane that to prevent?
Probably.
Well,
No.
I mean, I've seen it in other towns septic system designs where they've had to elevate it and you're too close to the wetland, they put this 41 mil membrane
Yeah, I've
to
never
prevent it from breaking out of the stone walls, but it directs it to go, forces the water to go down.
Down.
So it's that sort of same material.
similar. Yeah, instead of it sheds it away.
Yeah.
Rather, yeah.
And so my other question would be, being an aluminum culvert, right? Are there any ongoing routine maintenance costs that are typically not seen with a precast culvert?
That's a very good question. Besides what I would say is like the roadway upkeep, which is kind of already in the budget. What we would recommend is like a biennial inspection. So every 2 years, someone comes out and looks at it. I know that the state manages all of the federally funded, all of their bridges. They come out and inspect.
Right.
I know that they've been looking at a lot of these towns, their BRIs, which are those 10 to 20 foot structures. So that's something that we can hopefully get you guys on that inspection. What I would say is what you want to be on the lookout for. I can go back to the. So those, you can kind of see it. I don't know if I take the laser. It doesn't really show on the screen. On the left-hand side of the photo, you see a horizontal aluminum. So what that is these are just sheets. There's no structural element to them. So the way that they stand up is there's a rod that goes in and out of the picture into the backfill, and it attaches to a dead man anchor. So that's typically when I've inspected these, you'll see over time some tipping of those, just as you get some movement, some settlement. But generally, they're advertised to be low maintenance.
What would be involved in repairing something that you can just, can you replace that piece?
Right, you would have to excavate the road and reset those dead man anchors. Again, in my experience, I've never seen one that's out enough that would warrant that. Yeah.
And so just so that I
We're belaboring-
50 years
We're,
from now.
yeah, we're belaboring this.
Yeah.
Like, let's.
is this culvert coming in and being bolted up? Is it a bolted connection, or is it one piece, or aluminum welded? What's it?
Yeah, so it's bolted.
It's a bolted connection.
I don't have a good picture of that. It really depends, I think, things on what the contractor wants to do, because this is not the same structure, but you'll see everything is bolted and they're swinging it into place. So I'd imagine that they could do that for the arch shape, and then they would stand up these vertical panels separately, or they could just build it essentially piece by piece. It's up to the contractor.
It's
One
a
of
field
the
decision.
field decision, equipment decision. What is the water doing?
Water diversion, we have to do for water diversion.
You've got a dry summer.
What the roadway condition is. Ultimately, I think the best case scenario here would be to be able to divert traffic down Mill. So that was another challenge with trying to get the grant funding, is when the grant becomes available. Timing isn't great. Ideal condition would be do this right when school ends.
Yeah.
And just close the road there and get it done over the 3 months, and then have it open late August, early September.
We've done this before. We did a bridge replacement. We went through it was closed right after school, but they were ready. I think the middle of September or something, they were ready with the bridge that they did.
I just say the beauty of this is there's no forming of concrete, there's no curing of concrete.
Yeah,
so
it's quick.
It's quick.
Yeah.
We do have a line item. So the we have a line item to work with the town as well as Mass DOT, NHDOT, and the city of Nashua on detour routes. So the hope is to use Mill Road as Mill Street as the, sorry, I'm from New Hampshire. Mill Street as
You're
the,
forgiven.
Mill Street as the detour for local traffic. Obviously, that's not desirable for truck traffic. So we'd be working with obviously 113 in Massachusetts and 111 in New Hampshire. So we have all those contacts, and we have line items in there to help establish what a truck detour route would look like.
He's from Nashville, so
Yeah.
10 minutes from here, right? We can't, one of the things we looked at originally too was whether or not we could get this on the tip, just like the first section of 113, and we can't because that section of road, believe it or not, and I'm still in disbelief of this, Main Street from Pleasant Street up to 111 isn't a major arterial. So you have 113, which is the main road.
Yeah.
That's
We have
great.
Lowell Road, Westford Street, and Groton Street are your major arterials. So
Yeah.
this one isn't considered it. And I looked at the traffic data, it's old traffic data. I imagine when they do the next set of traffic data, we might be able to talk to NEMCOG and say, can we get this included? Do we have enough? Because again, you're connecting
Yeah,
111A to
it's a
113.
thoroughfare. Like,
I agree. And
Yeah.
it's, again, I talked to the previous transportation manager and said, how is this not on here? And I
Yeah.
pointed out, here's what we're connecting. He said, yeah, I don't understand it either, but it's right now, it's currently not. So we can't take advantage of that. We can't put it on the tip and get state funds for that, at least not now. But again, with an upgrade to making it, between 10 and 20 feet, now it becomes a mass BRI.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get the upgrade to the road and then it becomes recognized to get tip funding.
I mean, I'll read the motion. I have no questions. So I think I'll move to approve task order number 32 with Oil and an amount of $191,982 for cost related to design and engineering of the joint Grass Brook culvert replacement project, and authorize the chair to sign the task order on behalf of the board.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for sitting for the other part too.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, it's important to see these conversations, understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
when
It's
things-
nice the money's set aside, so those listening at home, it's money already encumbered.
We're like,
Emphasize encumbered,
Yeah.
it's already been done.
make sure we can't even talk about that right up front. So that
Thank
we
you
can afford this, but we
Senate for the earmark money.
Thanks, guys.
Love that laptop, bud.
Yeah, it's a trooper.
I just unloaded mine. It just got me an upgrade, which is a lot smaller.
I would bet. You're gonna need wheels for that.
Yeah.
Does this not get automatically track faces that talk?
Hold on a second, we can't hear you.
Does it track automatically faces the people that talk?
Yes,
They will, because I saw it switch.
it does, yeah.
That's cool.
Okay. Going back, are we ready to go on here? We'll go back to item number 5, which is annual report dedication.
So we were gonna have a discussion on setting criteria for this.
I would table that for tonight.
Yeah.
We're not ready to do this.
I'm tuckered out, so I'll say it first and foremost.
So the
We've
only
done
thing
2 hours
is-
of chat here.
Are we, if we table this, are we impacting the printing of the town
Yeah,
reports?
do we want to, is there a
Do
way
we
that?
even need to, we are not obligated to dedicate the town report to anybody. There's no obligation to do that. And, there are some very nice people that have lived in town that have passed away and have done some work for the town, but, are they,
Worthy.
I hate to say
I
those
know.
words, but, I think rather than just winging it and say, hey, all right, well, this was a nice person, we should dedicate. I think we should establish a little bit more of a criteria on whose name gets put in the book.
What if you charge memorials and monuments with it?
That would be you
I know,
and Joe.
yeah, but I mean, then it
No,
puts it
I
onto a
think
committee.
there should be a little more input than
Yeah.
just that.
It's been at the board, but
You know.
I think that, so then what I'm hearing is, Jason, that we're going to waive dedicating this.
So no dedication for this year, and then moving forward, we'll come up with criteria
Yeah.
for
how do you qualify for that? Do we need a motion? Annual town meeting warrant discussion.
So I have a draft, this is very much a draft. It doesn't require a lot of discussion unless there are questions. I just wanted to get the board a draft warrant for annual town meeting. Some of these may come up, but this, I just wanted to make sure you were informed at this point of where we were at. There's a meeting of the CPC on the 17th that a lot of these
Yeah.
articles are going to be discussed, but they're placeholders. I mean, a lot of these are placeholders right now. So unless you have any questions, you can kind of take a look and feel free to reach out if there's anything you think that's missing that should be added or whatever.
You have the housekeeping article?
Yeah.
On there.
I did.
So the one thing that we just, I mentioned this earlier was,
Bless you.
I don't, we didn't talk about this before, but Article 19, I think, is a really interesting article to be proposing on here. But we haven't discussed this as a board at all, but, which is fine.
Yeah, this is, like I said, this is draft. This is a suggested article. You might remember this did come up at one of the select board meetings a little while ago, and it allows the town to basically have a donation option on tax bill to go into a trust that can then be used to offset tax increases for seniors or disabled persons in town.
Yeah, I mean, just my 10,000-foot view, there's a lot of mechanics behind the scenes on how to make that work.
Yep.
So, and if you were to have it as an article, and town meeting floor asks, what's the functionality of it? You know, you might need a flow chart or something to explain how that works, because I read the thing, like, how it works. I mean, it's, I like the concept of it, I think it's a great idea, but I think that we might get asked as to how this thing functions.
Well, during COVID, we had an application for those that needed like assistance with bills. And I know we never had anyone really take us up on it, but maybe we could sort of model it.
Oh, we'd set ARPA money aside.
Yeah, we had set money aside, but like no one ever applied for it. So there might be an app.
No, the reason, we never really had the criteria established for the process for that. That was the rub with
But we had an application for it, didn't we?
No, it never went, it never got off the launch pad.
No, this was when Brian. And we never did.
It was never.
We never get
I
the.
thought he
never
got coached
processed.
one from I thought he got one from Oxford, another town.
No, I remember that.
It was Brian. It
Yeah.
it never manifested.
This is the same thing. It's just like that.
Yeah,
It's-
well,
you
like
gotta-
Plymouth will have
yeah.
one, right? Because they do a little special, they have like a dispensation for their elderly folks, so the town of Plymouth, I mean, so there's models out there, but to Ron's point, I guess it's, if
Yeah.
you get a question on the floor, it gets kind of,
I mean, some of this is kind of chicken and egg, like, it would create a committee to administer the fund.
yeah.
And the fund would be responsible under the law to create criteria
Mhm.
to administer the funds and to award the funds.
Yeah,
So like there's some, but I'm happy to put something together.
Yeah, I would just
Yeah.
walk that process a little bit more so that it's better understood and, because, you know, we did go through this with ARPA and all that. We didn't give anybody a buck.
No one ever
No.
came
There
before.
there was no process in place. It just sat there.
I mean, Joe Dean may have some for the veterans assistance stuff too. Maybe the models out there.
Yeah, most of the time you don't have to research.
Yeah.
Were you gonna, Jason, we talked about the bylaw for this town elections, changing the hours.
Talk to Bern about that. She.
Oh, okay.
Article 18.
Draft for the time being.
Placeholder.
Yeah. Okay.
Placeholder.
It is.
What about the land on Hall Street? Wasn't that a parcel that,
Oh, that was being donated to the town.
yeah.
So because that's because that, I believe, my understanding is that would be for conservation purposes.
Okay.
It doesn't need to go to town meeting.
Okay.
It would be accepted by the board.
Cool, okay.
All right, that's good to know.
You all set with that?
Right, yeah, there's a lot of CPA stuff in here.
Yeah.
Good. Money that we have.
The only source.
Yeah.
And some of these
Yeah.
have not been reviewed or approved by CPC again.
Right.
They are placeholders
Exactly.
in case they do
Okay,
approve them.
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Look at that.
You ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, Article 8, excuse me, Agenda Item 8. Appointment of Kate McNutt to the Master Plan Implementation Committee, Bryn Durno to the Board of Registrars, and Bonnie Riccadelli to Insurance Advisory Committee. Do we have a motion?
I move to appoint Bryn Durno to the Board of Registrars for a term to expire on June 30th, 2027. Kate McNutt to the Master Plan Implementation Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2024. And Bonnie Riccadelli to Insurance Advisory Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you for your service.
IT contract amendment.
I have no issue with this.
No, I don't worry about it.
No,
That's keeping more than anything else.
This is, so as we transition to the new regional dispatch center,
Mhm.
the Patriot needs some access to our IT infrastructure.
Yeah.
And so in order to do that, our current vendor, they're concerned with, hey, if we open up some access to these folks, we don't want to be held liable for something that they essentially caused.
Mhm.
So because of that, they have drafted, it's their draft, they have drafted. I've sent it to our town council for review. Unfortunately, he didn't have the time to review it before this meeting. So you can either wait till the next meeting to approve, or you can condition the approval subject to town council's review, comments, and approval. It's up to you one way or the other.
Do you know why he needs access? I mean, you probably know that. What does he need access to?
There's a lot of stuff that we're doing now with the computer systems and phone systems. We're actually gonna have an actual business line. We can talk to everybody in the police department, all the other fire departments, and that directly, and they'll actually be able to handle a lot of our business calls during the day, especially if we go down and help people. So he's trying to get that whole network up and running, which he can't do unless he gets permission from our current IT.
And you also may remember, part of the discussion initially with Patriot
Mhm.
was that they are actually bringing on an additional IT professional
Yeah.
as additional staff member for them. And that at some point, I don't know that it will be immediate, but at some point, they would like to transition fully to providing IT support to our public safety and policing department.
Okay.
I think that transition will take time, but ultimately, as long as things go the way we think they're gonna go, all of that responsibility may be transitioned to Patriot.
So,
This isn't just anybody over at Patriot, this is just Dave Stairs, the director. He's working on tons, he's got a ton of stuff.
Pretty high level, right? Like,
These,
Tons of stuff for free, and this is gonna help him get us further where we need to go. He's getting hung up all over the place with our IT because they won't go further.
Well, let's do it.
so
Let's get it.
I'll move to approve the proposed contract amendment with Umbrel Technologies, subject to review, comments, and approval from the town council, and authorize the chair to sign the contract amendment on behalf of the board with the first review by the town council of Dunstable.
Second.
all in favor? Conceptually, I'm okay with it. Technically, I'm not okay with it. Because he's gonna have access to our mail server.
well, I mean, like it or not,
Yeah.
they're part of town council government now. And
It's an extension.
And I mean, the amount of attention we've received in the last 2 months is more than we've received
It's,
in probably 2, 3 years. He's got,
So I'm okay, look, so my concern, there is a significant amount of IT disruption going on right now over malware and, it's so huge, it'll blow your mind. The trucking company up in Manchester, New Hampshire, can't ship anything because someone hacked into their computers the other day and locked up all their phone numbers, they don't know what's going where. And so this stuff's going on all the time, it's not in the news, and I don't wanna put,
some of it is in the news.
some of it is, I just wanna be careful not to put us in that position because we gave away some, and I like David Steers, but David Steers is David at Cliff Design. David Steers is David Steers, and when Dave's not around, I don't know.
Well, I will tell you this, I just had a conversation with Humble. You might remember, we got a $30,000 grant from
Yeah.
Community Compact. And, he just completed that project of transitioning us to new servers. And he said unequivocally, we are in a better position than we've been since he's been here because of the upgrades we've recently made to our IT infrastructure.
Yeah.
We are in much better shape than we were when we have about 5 a lot. So if that, yeah, gives you an idea.
We could use it, I mean, to the chief's point, we need to modernize some of our systems here, so it's, with caution, keep going forward, and these are important things, right? So,
Any other items you guys wanna talk about?
motion to adjourn?
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Fine.
Aye.
Thank you.